Welcome students, peasant movements in contemporary India. This is the topic that we are going to see in today's module. Welcome learners, since 1990s, a new wave of modernization is under the process in the name of liberalizing the economy, which would remove the chains shackling the Indian tiger as claimed by the ruling classes. The progress on the social fronts whatsoever made till now has come under the server attack. The process of neoliberal globalization has since then led to the churning and political consternation among the sections of the society. They are now refusing to live by oppression, inequality and staking claims like never before. These ripples of protest, resistance to design of the ruling classes coupled with capital, national and international is built on the wave of new social movements which emerged after the emergency of India in 70s. In some waves, the liberalization of idea and political principles, human rights ideals and a vision for the equitable and less consumptive society and development started in that period. The period saw a convergence of different political tendencies like socialist, Gandhian, Marxist, Leninist, Ambedkarites and others, giving birth to women's movements, environmental movement, new labor movement, appropriate technology movement and the seed of urban movement. From the previous modules, we have been discussing about the peasant movement in the pre-colonial and post-independent India. In this session, we shall study about the peasant movements in contemporary India. The objective of this session is to study about the peasant movement in the contemporary India in the viewpoints of trends of transformation, mobilization, domination and discontent, resistance against the domination and alternative identities, autonomy of identity. Then we shall see about the globalization and farmers movement, new farmers movement and 2021 peasant movements, trends of transformation. In the recent years, overt collective mobilization of the peasantry has been characterized by the frequent participation in meetings, processions, strikes, demonstrations, voting and other voting campaigns, etc. During Tibaga in the West Bengal and Telangana in Andhra Pradesh and the Naxalite movement in West Bengal in the forceful occupation of the land, cultivating of the standing paddy, harvesting of the paddy in their own courtyard against the will of the landowners, developing barricades against the police, standing in the forefront of the battle in attacking police and the landowners and the administration with the traditional weapons, taking part in the guerrilla warfare, treating and sheltering the injured activities, developing the self-defense techniques against the police and maintaining a channel of communication with the underground activities. These movements, though were fought in different places at different points of time, ideologically and also in terms of orientation towards the change and forms of mobilization, were radical in nature. In the recent years, peasant movements have emerged as reformative and institutionalized both in West Bengal and Andhra Pradesh. Mobilization, domination and the discontent. The process of transformation of peasant movements have affected the peasantry's relationship with the wider society. While the radical peasant movements have helped the peasantry to demolish the pre-existing structure of domination, and the process of institutionalization of these movements have instituted another form of domination on them. However, the peasantry has been trying to develop and identify alternative channels of action to resist this structure by articulating their own process against the structure of the subordination both individually and collectively. In the process of articulating this praxis, peasantry has acquired a new sensitivity, new ideas and at times new identities. The left movements, especially the radical ones, have played a crucial role both in West Bengal and Andhra Pradesh in demolishing the old primordial structure of subordination and inculcating a secular identity for the peasantry, that is a class identity. In West Bengal specifically, since the late 1970s, the programs of land distribution and tenancy reforms through Operation Barga, employment generation schemes through the Food for Work programs, integrated rural development program, that is the IRDP, extension of microcredit through the rural banks and the peasant cooperatives have helped to reduce the dependency of the peasantry on the landowners come the moneylenders. The United Labour Federation initiated the grassroots mobilization through the village panchayat have helped to demolish the pre-existing structure of the primordial dependency and subordination and have paved the way for the emergence and the sustenance of the class identity of the peasantry. The reformative and institutionalized grassroots mobilization by the political parties in the rural West Bengal, however, have replaced the primordial form of domination over the peasantry by the domination of the political parties. After examining the conditions of the rural labour in the context of the land reform in West Bengal, the National Commission on Rural Labour observes the land distribution programs in the substantiative term have hardly helped the rural people to be economically viable. The situation is so desperate that the large number of poor peasantry look for relief work or alternative avenues of employment by seeking the help from the local party leaders and village panchayats. According to Gramsci, a ruling class in order to be a hegemonic needs the consent to govern. The role of the education and of the intellectual are crucial for the maintenance of the hegemony, as every relationship of hegemony is necessarily an educational relationship. The left front again not only controls the management of the educational institutions, but also recruits left front supporting intellectuals and the party cadres as the school teachers so as to ensure their domination in rural areas. Indeed, efforts have been made in the contemporary West Bengal to integrate the vast areas of the life and the consciousness of the rural people into the hegemony of the state through various means. As most civil society institutions have been subject to politicization and the state sponsored co-option, they have emerged to be the state in disguise. For leaders of the political parties in power play a key role in the functioning of these institutions. Resistance against domination and alternative identities. The structure of domination thus is not free from contestations. There have been resistance and struggle in various forms against this domination. To J.C. Scott, even in the large scale structures of domination, the subordinates have a fairly extensive social existence outside the immediate control of the dominant. It is in such settings that a shared critique of domination develops by way of creating a hidden transcripts that represent a critique of power as spoken behind the back of the dominant. However, there are undercurrents of discontent against many activities of one's own political party. Many disgruntled followers are found to recite these rhymes against their own leaders in private. Sustained grassroots mobilization has also helped a section of the peasantry articulate issues of gender equality. The construction of identity also involves the social production of boundaries reflecting the process of inclusion and exclusion. As collective identity is a matter of social construction, it gets reconstructed in multiple ways in the process of transformation of social movements. Sustained grassroots mobilizations has paved the way for the articulation and regeneration of the gender, caste, farmer, citizen and ethnic etc. for collective identities. Significantly, all the movements and the shaping of different collective identities have occurred along the line of continuous mobilization since 1950s. Unemployed, educated youth and the school dropouts are more open in expressing their adherence to this movement than others. A young man from the Naxalbari says, "We are deprived of all the opportunities in our own land. The outsiders own the tea gardens. All the government services are taken away and manned by the Bhatiyas, that is the Bengali migrant from other part of the state, or Marwaris and Punjabis who look down upon us own all the businesses. They laugh at our languages, our food habits and our dresses. We have to speak in their language in our own land, though there is a separate Telangana statehood movement." Telangana movements in the Telangana region of Andhra Pradesh has a long history. It has secured a momentum in the recent years with the formation of the Telangana Rashtriya Samiti, that is the TRS, and its electoral success in the last election. This movement has raised the issues of the alleged Andhra domination over the Telangana region in economic, cultural and political terms, persisting agricultural backwardness, poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, etc. of the people of the Telangana. There has been a strong demand for a separate Telangana state to maintain the linguistic, cultural and political identity of the people of Telangana. Again, the Madiga Reservation Parota Samiti movement of the scheduled caste and Dudum Deba movement of the scheduled tribes have been demanding recategorization of the scheduled caste and tribe of Andhra Pradesh into A, B, C and D groups based on their economic, educational and political advancement for the purpose of getting benefits of reservation. Again, there have been the cotton growers and the anti-suicide movements of the farmers in the Telangana region. The anti-Arak movement led by the peasant women has had a strong impact all over Andhra Pradesh. Poor peasants have been parts of the most of these movements. For example, Raji Rama, the female Sarpanch of the Malla Reddy Pale, was associated with the anti-Arak movement. She is also a strong advocate of the Madiga Reservation movement and a participant in the cotton growers and anti-suicide movements. She is an activist of the separate Telangana state movement. She says, "The life of the peasant women in Telangana is full of struggle and we all are parts of all the struggles in Telangana." The political parties have tried both ideologically and strategically to inculcate the class for itself identity of the peasantry. However, over the years, in the process of ideological modification and the strategic class alliance with the landed gentry for the electoral politics, the basics of the class-based politics has been widely eroded among the peasantry. Hence, in the process of sustained mobilization, there has been the construction and regeneration of the caste, gender, ethnicity, regional, etc. identities from amongst the peasantry. Autonomy of identity, or the identities thus constructed or regenerated along the line of transformation of the peasant movements, autonomous of the aims organizations and ideology of the peasant movements? Do they exhibit a trend of the transition from the so-called old to new social movements? It has been highlighted that new social movements do not bear a clear relation to the structural role of the participant, that their social base transcends class structures, that they exhibit plural ideas and values, that their ideological characteristics stand in a sharp contrast to Marxist concept of ideology as an unifying and totalizing element for collective action, and that they involve the emergence of new collective identities. These characteristics of new social movements, however, are not independent of their links with the past. The social agenda of the new social movements based on the local movements with the multiple identities located in civil society, stressing on new ways of social communication, that is the solidarity and mutual understanding, and a new harmonic relationship with the nature. Power have given birth to various local movements of the multiple identities in the process of transformation of these movements and sustenance of the mobilization. These have started exhibiting a plurality of ideas, values, ideological orientations, and collective action. The process of formation of new collective identities frequently or explicitly transcends the predefined process of class identity formation, as the most of the new collective identities, namely the gender, caste, region and ethnicity, are autonomous of the given aims and objectives of the movements of the left parties. It would, however, be problematic to describe the autonomy of evolved patterns of identity in terms of new social movements alone, as substantive issues involved in mobilization do not purely belong only to the cultural domain. There are several political and economic issues involved in this mobilization. Through their everyday experiences of struggle and prolonged participation in collective action, the peasantry has been trained to defend their identity and to articulate the strategy of their resistance against domination. These everyday life experiences of the resistance form the basis of the process of the peasantry against the domination, whereby they have also got alternative choices to express their resistance against the domination. Subaltern studies have visualized the autonomy of the peasant struggle in the terms of their localized manifestations. It has been argued that subaltern constituted an autonomous domain with a wide variety of the generally autonomous modes of thought and action expressed through rebellions, riots and the popular movements. According to Sumit Sarkar, spontaneous gestures of unrest like the looting of huts, tribal movements, Kisan movements and so on often tended to remain autonomous, scattered and remained mostly outside the ambit of the mainstream nationalist movement in colonial India. Partha Chatterjee is of the view that the dominant groups in their exercise of domination do not consume or destroy the dominated classes, for there would be no relation of power and hence no domination. Without their autonomy, the subaltern would have no identity of their own. Sustained mobilization has made the peasantry aware of the various bases of their oppression and subordination in the society, be its caste, class, gender, ethnicity and regionalism. Hence, they articulate their resistance both individually and collectively, it need be by reconstructing parallel and at times alternative identities. Here, linkages with the outside agencies come at a larger stage through increasing interactivity with the larger world around. Pulla Ravindran a scheduled caste leader from the Warangal in Andhra Pradesh, recollects his experience. We have been oppressed and exploited in various ways. At times, we are exploited as the Madiga, the scheduled caste. Our women are exploited as women, labourers and as scheduled caste members. We are also exploited and discriminated against as Telanganites. Our oppression, however, does not end. If we resist from one direction, it appears from other. We try to resist oppression from all possible directions now. It is significant to maintain here that the political parties have paved the way for conscientization of the peasantry through the sustained mobilization. The spread of education, literacy campaign, mass communication network coupled with the rigorous mobilization has helped the peasantry to redefine their identity on a regular basis. Their life situation is defined both in terms of their regular survival strategy and historical transformative experiences. Though their identities have got reconstructed over the years, the elements of marginality both in the socio-economic and the political terms remain attached to them. They tend to use the available channels of political mobilization and activism to ensure the daily livelihood. In this context, their participation in routinized collective mobilization, even if it is contributors to their domination, is an immediate survival strategy. However, the oppressed and marginalized peasantry also simultaneously looks for alternatives to articulate the action against domination. Globalization and farmers' movements. Unlike the early movements, those of the farmers in the era of globalization have reached to the issues related to globalization. The attempt of the Western countries, especially to interfere in the agrarian economy of the country, especially through the Dunkel Draft and the General Agreement of Tariff and Trade, evoked different reactions from the farmers' movement. While Sharad Joshi, the Shetkari Sangatana leader from the Maharashtra, supported the globalization, two supported leaders, that is the Professor Nanjuda Swami of the Karnataka Rajya Raita Sangha and the Mahendra Singh Tikait of the Bharatiya Kisan Union in Uttar Pradesh, opposed it. Sharad Joshi argued that the opening of Indian agriculture to the world competition would benefit the Indian farmers. His perspective helped him to become an advisor to the government of India during the regime of V.P. Singh. The opponents of globalization, Nanju Dasami and Tikait, got support of the academic activists like Vandana Shiva and a large number of socialists and Gandhians. They argued that globalization would not only expose the Indian farmers to the unequal competition with the European farmers, an attempt to change the patent laws against the seed would deprive them of their traditional rights over the preservation and generation of seeds. They opposed the attempt of the government to change the patent laws, demanded abrogation of the subsidies given by the European governments to their farmers. They also opposed the multinational companies which used Indian natural resources like water to manufacture the soft drinks. In fact, intellectuals like Vandana Shiva argue that modern technology popularized in the Green Revolution has harmed the fertility of the land rather than helping it. The opponents of the globalization organize rallies, demonstrations and seminars to register their protest. Following the death of Professor Nanjuda Swami, the farmers' protest against globalization has got weakened. New farmers movement. The 1980s saw the beginning of what is called the new farmers movement in different parts of India. The reasons were the term of trade going against the agriculture, declining purchasing power, unremunerative prices, and agriculture becoming the losing proposition, increase in the input prices, declining per capita income from agriculture, etc. It all began in Maharashtra when Shetkari Sangatana under the Sharad Joshi, a former employee of United Nations turned farmer, began agitating in village called Shakkan in Pune for remunerative prices for agricultural commodities, particularly for onion. Many a time the demands of the farmers movement would include such issues as remunerative prices, writing of loans, anti-government policy of the procurement, levy policy and liberalization, etc. Anticipated mostly by the middle and rich farmers of different Indian states, the farmer movement represents a distinct phase in the history and tradition of agrarian unrest in India. 2020 and 21 peasant movements. In 2020 and 2021, the Indian farmers' protest is an ongoing protest against three farm acts which were passed by the Parliament of India in September 2020. The farmer unions believe that the laws will open the sale and marketing of the agricultural products outside the notified agricultural produce market committee, that is the APMC, mandis for farmers. Further, the laws will allow interstate trade and encourage high electronic trading of agricultural produce. The new laws prevent the state government from collecting a market fee or levy for trade outside the APMC markets. This has led the farmers to believe the laws will gradually lead to the deterioration and ultimately end the mandi system, and thus leaving the farmers at the mercy of the corporates. Conclusion. Though it is hard to say whether the peasant movements and revolts contributed substantially to the larger and more distant goals of complete restructuring of the social order, yet their significance lies in raising fundamental issues about land, lives and livelihood. The state responded to their agitation by initiating land reforms, imposing the Land Ceiling Act, abolishing the zamindari system, though these reforms remained unfinished as yet. Despite modernization, the peasant cultivator is here to stay, though in the contemporary context of huge land grab all across the world and even in India, their existence is in peril. But as long as land continues to be the source of our sustenance, peasants will remain significant a category. Thank you.